A Lamborghini minus $200,000 equals a Tesla Model 3 performance is our first topic of the day. We also get into what's called unintended acceleration. Today are our topics. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Wanted to also thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. Our B-roll today is actually the Lamborghini Aventador. The loop that we got for them wasn't perfect, so I may have to stop and update it again. We wanted to note to you that today's show is more on Lamborghini, a little bit on Tesla, so we're sort of blending the two, a little bit of a different approach. So one of the things we've been watching a lot over the last couple of years is the number of people who are racing Lamborghinis with different versions, either the Model 3, X, or S. I think the best photo I've seen is where you have a Model X towing an Esprit and racing the Esprit at the same time and beating the car, even with the extra weight in tow. So what all of this is pointing out is that Tesla is a great car to perform, and it's awesome to see it going up against the big cars in the world. The logic of our show selection today was the fact that basically a Model 3, and clearly with the top-of-the-line Performance S and X, there's a situation going on where Tesla is offering performance that basically is supercar performance, but for a fraction of the cost. So what's beautiful about this that we've seen is a lot of owners are getting a chance to explore the performance of the vehicle in this fashion. And I think it's awesome. Obviously, the owners think it's awesome because they purchased it and are enjoying it. So the question is, where is the problem popping up? And so we wanted to move away from the well-known statistical performance of the Model 3 performance / S and X performances and really get into sort of a sidebar note. Our show has had an opportunity to make suggestions that resulted in modifications of how Tesla operates. And today we wanted to sort of move into that realm as well. One of the things that popped up, this was about 3 years ago, and it's now in a lawsuit process with Tesla, was there's a Tesla owner whose son got a hold of his Performance S and died going 120 miles an hour, I guess in a 40 or something like that. I believe it was in Florida. So why this is big is the fact that one of the things that's starting to happen right now, or I thought was going to happen, was that over the last, I've been test driving cars and writing about them for 30 years. And I'd say over the last, 15 years, we've gone from having almost no cars that were above 500 horsepower to having 100 cars that are over 500 horsepower, a reflection of technology, as well as a reflection of, what engineers have been able to bring forward, and it's awesome. And the vehicles that have benefited include the Lamborghini you see behind me, and obviously Tesla as well. So I wanted to note, I had an experience. There's a place called Aspen, which is a ski resort in Colorado. If you go there, by the way, the Aspen Club is owned by a friend, and you get special friend discounts if you go. So I had an encounter, this is about 10 years ago, where Aspen is a unique mountain. And what's unique about it is that usually mountains have green, blue, black, and then double black and other colors, green being for beginners all the way up. In the case of Aspen Mountain, they actually don't have any green skiing areas. They start at blue and they go up from there. So I had an interesting encounter with a couple of ladies. There were two ladies in mink coats that were on the gondola with me. And when we got off, it was very clear that they're either beginning / green skiers but they had decided that they were going up on a blue mountain because it was the easiest mountain to go to versus having to go someplace else because they were staying on the resort. Now, I would say the minks they were wearing were at least, like $10,000, maybe $15,000 minks. So these were very wealthy folks that were in evidence. And I thought it was an interesting circumstance because what I always do when I go skiing is I do what's called at 10 a.m. They usually have a tour of the mountain where they allow you to, with somebody who knows the hill very well, so they take you on all these runs that you might not have found on your own. So after seeing these ladies, I was kind of shocked to see beginners wanting to go up into what I call a blue zone or black zone of skiing. And so what we were stunned by was the fact that these ladies were saying, look, we're rich enough to wear $15,000 minks, so we can ski wherever the heck we please, was kind of the body language they gave off. And so I was kind of stunned because there's a thing called catwalks. So sometimes between two mountains, instead of having a nice wide path for you to ski, there'll be a very narrow road that you have to be a good skier to not fall off, because to your left will be a very steep and brutal run into the trees, and to your right is another brutal run into the trees that could be permanently like kill you or hurt you badly if you don't know how to manage yourself well in that circumstance. So just after I saw these ladies, I'm going to great. So just after seeing these ladies, I was kind of shocked because we actually started heading towards a black area of skiing. And as we were getting there, there's something called a catwalk. And because of a tree sticking up out of the snow, you had to go to one leg as you went by that spot in order to get by it, because otherwise you'd run into the tree that was just the top of it was sticking out of the snow. So as I went by this, I noticed the ladies could barely ski. And as I went by, I was thinking to myself, wow, sometimes being rich could be bad for your health, because you're going to get into something that the mountain doesn't care whether you're rich or not. You can still die up there if you get into the wrong path and you roll down the hill into a tree. You're dead whether you have no money in the bank or whether you have a ton of money in the bank. It's the same deal. And so what I'm getting at here is, just because you have the resources to nab a Performance S or a Lamborghini or any of the high-end cars, there really needs to be consideration of the fact that this is not really a game. For those who are great drivers, it's not a big deal. But every time I go to the service center, I watch these husbands who are obviously engineers of some sort or techies, and their wives are like, white-knuckled, hoping they'll survive the pickup of the car. And so one of the myriad of things that Tesla needs to consider is the fact that I believe that Tesla needs to do what's called speed rating of their buyers, meaning that if you're going to get a monster in your family, and even if you're married and maybe there are other kids, you have to think about the fact that those people could die behind the wheel of your Tesla. So it's better for you to take them. There's something called skip barber racing. So all the major tracks across the United States have organizations that teach driving at a performance level, racing level to people. And pretty much I'm arguing this because it's my belief, based on the numbers turned in on all these Teslas, that you're not dealing with a car, you're dealing with a race car that's pretending to be a civilian sedan, especially when it can blow away cars like the Lamborghini behind me. So I bring this up to you today because it's better. So the whole issue of unintended acceleration has come about. And supposedly there are 140 cases out of 500,000 vehicles, something of that ilk is what I'm hearing. But I have to say that the challenge right now is to note the fact that this isn't a car, it's a race car. And just because you can put a body on it that pretends like it's a normal vehicle and pretend for people in the general public to go out and drive it like it's a normal vehicle, means nothing. If you care about the people that are in your household, especially your young kids, you'll make sure that both you and them have some training in terms of what can happen in these cars. Because I've actually had training, and I drove a Performance 3 in Fremont. And I'm not saying I lost consciousness, but I went short of breath because of how fast our acceleration was in that car. And maybe they tuned it a little bit or something, but I did have a, not life-threatening, but definitely I can't believe this moment in a Model 3. And I felt like the G-forces we were pulling was greater in the 3 than I was in an S. So what I'm saying here is that, and for our show, what we found is there's things what we've said, and then Elon, he'll start saying the same thing a month or two later, and I hope this is the case here as well. But basically, if any of you have the cash to do the top of the line of any of these vehicles, I want to encourage you to do at least 2 days of driving school at one of the major tracks. There's a bunch of different brands. I just know Skip Barber Racing keeps popping to mind. And so when it comes to these unintended acceleration situations, I believe that part of the issue that might be going on is that there are people who are not speed rated for the vehicle they're in or its capabilities, and that it affects their ability to manage the vehicle once it gets out of hand. So, the other thing about the Teslas, obviously, is all that data is in the computer, so Tesla can tell what actually occurred to see if there's any severe problems with the vehicle. But the other thing that I found is I've done 2 or 3 of the driving schools, and I would say that what it does is it sort of teaches you about things that can happen, emergency moves to make, that would be good. I shouldn't do this, but let me just give you one quick driving lesson from one of the schools I went to, and that is that the next time you're on the freeway and you go into an overpass, the oval that they have, what I want you to do is, as you get into the turn, lock your hand on the wheel once you're into the turn properly, and then just look to your left, look to your right for a second. The reason I want you to do that is you'll notice that once you pick up the curve, you're free to pick up other hazards that might be around, because the curvature of that turn will save you. One other thing to notice and to consider trying out is getting full control of your car in terms of the position of the car relative to the tires. So, for example, if you're going and you're slightly on a turn, when you slam on the brake, all the weight of the vehicle pushes to the front right and destabilizes the car. Whereas if you maintain a control of the vehicle and don't slam on the brakes, as long as you're moving, you have an opportunity to steer your way out of issues. So there's plenty of videos on YouTube that would go through these, but in essence, it's learning how cars behave under stress, and a little overemphasis on one tire versus having weight on all 4 can be the difference between you existing and not existing, especially if you're in a supercar. So the other thing I wanted to point out is that one of the other challenges of Tesla that I think there should be some changes to is, what if you have a valet parking your car? What if you have your son driving it and we know that he's going to pick up his friends and head out? So there's something called biometrics. So you could limit the performance of the car based on who's in it by a fingerprint, or maybe blowing into something, or a code or something of that nature. But in essence, what you run is the opportunity to control who sees the best performance of the vehicle. And I believe that little things like biometrics are some of the control method to lock out the full power of the car. Also, training on how to handle out of control cars at high speeds is also an excellent thing to be aware of. And I think this training or education is applicable to all of the cars, because once you get into high speed and high acceleration, things can happen. And what these driving schools specialize in is sort of showing you what can happen and how to get out of it. The one focus place I'd like you to try to get to is there's a concept called a skid pad. And so what happens is that either in snow or if braking heavy or in a wet situation, the car starts to spin on you. Being able to see it and practice it a few times, I think, helps in terms of your command of that circumstance. So it could be any of the Tesla vehicles, but Tesla is really a race car pretending to be a regular vehicle. And so this is kind of the focus of the show today. Yes, Tesla can blow away Lamborghinis. Yes, Tesla blows away Ferraris regularly. Same thing for the whole line until we get up into the Chiron and some of the multi-million-dollar cars. The challenge, though, is that the rules of the road, how your tires behave, how turning works in that situation, all those things remain the same regardless of the vehicle, especially when that vehicle is under stress and moving fast. And it's very easy to find yourself in a situation that you didn't expect. And you can get into things like black ice and issues of that sort. So I didn't really go deeply into some of the classes I've had on driving, et cetera. But I have to say that after studying, probably 100 people getting car deliveries, I'm consistently amazed at the degree to which the partner, usually the wife, wasn't ready for the car, and therefore they're going to be ending up behind the wheel. And if they end up behind the wheel and get a taste of the power that you just bought, that surprise may be the end of your partner. So we'd love for you to enjoy your life, enjoy your car, whether it's a Tesla or not, because these issues can pop up in any vehicle. So I wanted to, I think I've gotten on my soapbox. I'm hoping that what will happen here, just like has happened with some other things, I just wanted to sort of run through this. So on one hand, it's a look at, hey, what can this car do? And we know what it can do, which it can blow away pretty much anything under $1 million. So that tells you it's a capable race car, and putting it in the wrong hands jeopardizes whoever's hands they're in because they're not ready for it. So until a bunch of people die, nobody will look at it seriously. I mean, they're talking about unintended issues, and we have some people that have passed away already. But one of the things that's been happening with Tesla is a lot of the buyers of Teslas were referred to the cars by other owners. And so my theory is that if you're going to refer a friend of yours to the car and you're not going to give them some this is what can happen lessons and be thorough about it, you're jeopardizing your life of your friend and their family in the process of putting a race car in their hand without any training. So notice the car behind me right now as it's side skidding there. So part of the issue is many of the classes you'll go to will actually allow you to put the car into power skids and other things so that you can see what happens to the car under stress and how to bring it back into heel. And it's definitely Teslas, but it's anything that's powerful and fast. And we want you to be happy, successful, and do well. And that's why we always have our health tips at the end of our show. So we're at about 20 minutes right now, and I've gotten my chance to talk about Lambo and its interface with Tesla here a bit. And I appreciate your listening and not shutting me off based on the fact that it's not an exclusively to Tesla circumstance that we're discussing. A final footnote on Tesla on this whole thing is that one of the most important things about speed and driving fast in cars and being able to do so a lot is to have a car that doesn't look like a race car that's a race car. So the fact that Tesla does not look like a race car allows a lot of folks to get away with speeding because the police are looking for the Lamborghini behind me, not for the Tesla that's typically speeding. And so therefore you're going to get away with a lot of speeding. The challenge is you can end up in tricky situations that a driving school would have really helped on. So do not put your loved ones at risk of getting crushed in this car. So we wanted to field any questions you guys may have on this whole issue. I've actually test driven. I worked for Forbes magazine briefly and had a chance to go to 2 or 3 different schools. Like I said, every major racetrack in the country has someone operating there that teaches professional or defensive specialty driving. And, back in the day when I did it, 10, 20 years ago, the fee was $300 to $500. There are some programs that are 1 day that are about that number, but several of them, like I think Skip Barber was in Connecticut someplace, and they actually take you from a regular car, Formula Ford, down into a race car. And so you get an opportunity to really try out the experience of sort of running a race car on the track, as well as all the other aspects of how cars with a lot of power and speed might behave. So, today's show, obviously a little bit deviation from the norm. We appreciate your indulging us. Yeah, there's a question from Martin about the fact that it's snowing. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Tesla is it does have the benefit of a low center of gravity in the middle. It tends to set up for traction to be good across all four wheels. But, like there's actually a show that, I'm going to shut us down here. There's actually a, great. I have to talk with those guys. I haven't talked with them in a while, but I was impressed with what I learned there. If you'll indulge me for one more second, one thing about racing is take a look at the track, any track that from above, watch a car going around a racetrack. You'll notice that the inside right, usually right, but it can be left, as the car moves, there are typically markers on the inside or outside, usually yellow in color, and you'll notice that the drivers, as they go by, their wheels will try to touch those painted areas as they go by, and they'll deliberately move the car across lanes to get there. And so I note this to you because part of the process of good racing is you want to find a line through that turn that's the straightest possible, because that's where you'll get your most speed. Same thing if, for example, you're going around, as you're getting on the freeway, if you cut to the outside initially and cut right across the lowest point of that line in, it would give you the most speed out of that turn. Similar idea from the racing space. And, some of the things that allow you to enjoy some of the performance of the car and do so safely. At any rate, we can definitely field questions at the end. We're looking forward to them. I hope none of your family or friends were hurt by unintended acceleration issues. And this was designed to sort of look into that a little bit, because it is truly a race car that you're getting, and it's pretending to be a regular street car, but when it can beat most of the race cars that allow on the road, it's clear what you're dealing with. And it's a good idea to manage it well so it doesn't become an end-of-life situation. At any rate, I haven't seen any new questions here posed by any of our viewers today. Just wanted to thank you for joining us. Our health tips of the day reminder, try the 5-2 diet or one of the others. There's this rumor about Model Y starting in a couple of weeks. It's pretty exciting. If that does happen, stock price is going to go crazy, I think. And those couple of weeks actually coincides with the earnings announcement. So what can you say? The stock has already doubled. It's gone beyond what we expected. So the next hurdle is 600, 650. And if Model Y is coming and the numbers are good, I think the stock price is going to do great. So we wanted to remind you, don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4. Also, please remember to try your 25 leg lifts a day. That's a great idea. I mean, that'd be a good idea to do performance where you pick a track and offer a day of Tesla left.